Now, I wish this was some clickbait tomfoolery, but it isn't. The Children's Commissioner for England, Dame Rachel D'Souza, is currently launching a petition to get VPNs banned. Now, I'm going to go straight into the deep end of this. What's actually happening here is straight up corruption and, well, let's just dive into it. Brits call for VPN ban for minors to curb the Online Safety Act loopholes. That's the title of this article, which, by the way, isn't correct at all, but we will get to that. A majority of Britons believe that children under the age of 18 should be banned from using virtual private networks, VPNs, following a recent surge, a survey has found. Research from YouGov found that 55% of the public supports a ban for minors, while only 20% think that they should be allowed to use them. This comes as the UK's online safety blah blah blah. You know about the Online Safety Act, and if you don't, Jesus Christ, get back on the internet. The Children's Commissioner for England, Dame Rachel D'Souza, has called on the government to close the most obvious loophole in the new regime. Yep. That feels about right. Urging ministers to compel VPN providers to implement highly effective age assurance to prevent children from accessing naughty content on the internet. Now, just very quickly, I want to actually have a look at the YouGov poll. So we can see from the YouGov poll that 55% of people that have done this poll, which is only, by the way, 4,000 people. So when they say Britons want it to be banned, what they mean is a very small sample want it to get banned. Now, this poll itself has been ran as a paid Facebook ad and a paid Google ad on Google's ad network and, of course, Meta's advertising tools. So essentially, this page has been targeted as an advert towards people. So, of course, this isn't data that represents the whole of the UK. This is data that represents the people that they placed it in front of. This isn't what the UK thinks. This is what the people that they've chosen to be involved in the poll think. This has clearly been directed at a niche set of people that are against the Online Safety Act, or, to be honest, most commonly, probably been directed towards an older demographic of a Facebook audience, somewhere between the age of 50 to 60-year-olds, because that tends to be at the moment, because it's, well, this is a generalization, by the way, I'm fully aware of that, but overall, the older demographic tend to be less aware of how VPNs work. So this data that's probably realistically going to be submitted in some form of evidence in Parliament to introduce a ban on VPNs, this data isn't a fair representation of what people in the British general public actually believe. Now, obviously, as the Children's Commissioner, this person does hold some weight in government, and also they've been a part of many policies that have been passed. People can run ads on whatever they want, but you know for a fact that the person that made this poll could, in the Houses of Parliament, say, by the way, we ran it as an ad to target people so they take part in the poll. And most people in Parliament that aren't clued up on how targeting works for ads will just go, okay, oh wow, look, people think that we should verify ages for VPNs. They're not going to see the fact that how you can selectively choose data and selectively choose who you target your advert towards. This is a fucking huge problem, because without a doubt, I can pretty much bet my life on it at this point, this will be introduced into some form of conversation in Parliament at some point within the next 6 months to a year, if not sooner. And the fact is, this isn't accurate data, and it genuinely worries me. Now, this poll isn't necessarily to ban VPNs. The government have actually stated that at the moment, they have no intention of banning VPNs. The same way that in 2023, they said they weren't going to introduce age verification. Now, before we actually get into what the poll is, and to be honest, why the poll is actually so dangerous, and also how they've tactfully worded it, I just want to say a brief thank you to Private Internet Access, VPN. Sorry, but this is the most fitting video for this. Private internet access essentially allows you to spoof your location to anywhere in the world. So, for example, I've said this before, but I genuinely watch Netflix all the time using private internet access because their Netflix is better. It also has other uses, but we can't talk about that. But if you want to save yourself 86% off and also get 4 months free, you can use the link down below. It massively supports the channel, and it also resists against stuff like this, because if you get a VPN now, this is less effective, and we'll get into that very shortly. So the title of the poll states, a VPN, a virtual private network, is a tool that hides a user's internet activity. Now, that's not strictly true. With private internet access, it is, but not all VPNs necessarily hide activity. So already that's a massive generalization. And location. Yeah, location's fair. Often used for privacy. Yes, obviously. Or bypassing content restrictions. No. It's almost like people wouldn't need it if you didn't restrict content in the first place. Then it goes on to the gaslighting. Do you think under 18 should be allowed to use VPNs, or should they be banned from using them? This is like the same argument of like, should we ban freedom of speech from people who say things we don't like? It's exactly the same logic that you apply to both arguments, because the problem and the savior of VPNs is privacy. Now, what they're doing here is basically trying to word children into the use of VPNs. Most kids aren't really bothering with VPNs, and the ones that are because they're now being driven to do it due to the Online Safety Act. Now, What this is basically calling for is age checks on VPNs, and this is a monumental issue because this goes directly against the Online Safety Act. Now, a VPN isn't a website host. They're not hosting illicit or dangerous content. They're acting as a tunnel to get through to the hosted website. But the way that they're phrasing this is that they think that VPN should be bundled into the Online Safety Act as a website host, because that's the only way that they could actually really reiterate what they've said in the Online Safety Act. If they do that, that's the gateway for every single part of the internet to need age verification. And I mean, when I say every single part, I mean, if you log into your bank, age verification, because if you're using a VPN, you would have handed over passport information. Now, the really interesting thing about that, obviously we had GDPR, which was introduced by the European Union, but at the same time, the British government have pretty much adopted the same rules for GDPR following Brexit. This here would require age verification to prove that someone's over the age of 18. But if someone under the age of 18 submits that data, that is a direct violation of GDPR regulations as we know it now. In fact, the Online Safety Act, as it stands, directly violates GDPR, and the government are completely ignoring the fact that they should be paying out billions of dollars worth of fines for directly violating a law in which they signed in following Brexit. The Online Safety Act is the biggest GDPR breach ever. Fucking insanity. But like I said before, this whole petition is massively skewed because there's been adverts run behind it. This is the exact same thing as me running an ad, for example, saying, do you think eating meat should be banned, and then targeting it at vegans? Obviously, the data is going to be skewed in the favor of the poll. I think this is absolutely absurd, and I hope you do too. I really hope you do. The government has said at the moment they have no plans to introduce a ban of a VPN, but they've said that repeatedly, that there is no plans, or there is at the moment no intention. I cannot stress enough that that absolutely means nothing. Like nothing at all. It doesn't mean the paper it's written on. Because like I said, after 6 months, they're going to be looking at the effectiveness of the Online Safety Act and how VPNs are being used to circumvent it. And that's when they're going to revise the Online Safety Act. But the problem is if you don't get a VPN, you've already submitted to the Online Safety Act and handed over all your private information, or you do get a VPN and it makes their case look more effective. You can't win. You genuinely can't win in this instance. I think if we just keep going to use VPNs, and there will always be a way around it, private internet access, I know for a fact that they'll be fighting against giving over your government ID. And at the very minimum, because private internet access don't keep any logs, if they were subpoenaed, yeah, the only thing the government would be able to find out is that you indeed use a VPN, but they wouldn't be able to see what you did with it. And luckily, touch wood, which is one of the reasons I work with private internet access, they've proven in court that they don't keep logs, but it's absolutely fucking absurd. This is the world that we live in. This is happening. The last access to privacy we had was through VPNs, and they are attacking that. They're attacking the final freedom that we have. Thank you for watching. Check out private internet access at the link below, and I'll see you in the next one.